History is filled with almosts. Those who almost adventured, who almost achieved. Then there are others. The ones who embrace the moment and commit. They calm their minds and steel their nerves with 4 simple words, whispered since the time of the Romans. Fortune favors the brave.
Hello, everyone. We're here for the GeckoCon, the NFT conference of CoinGecko. I'll be your panelist. My name is George. I'm the editor-in-chief of Crypto Potato, one of the leading cryptocurrency news medias. And I'm joined by Sandra from Zilliqa and Chris from Immutable. Hello, guys, and thank you for being here. Do you want to give us a few words and introduce yourselves? Sandra, ladies first, of course.
All right, thanks. All right, hi everyone. So nice welcome and introduction. Thank you so much. So my name is Sandra and I lead from an NFT perspective and Metaverse at Zilliqa. And, I'm really excited to be here discussing the future of, what blockchain can add to the industry and how we can grow this together.
Yeah, and for me over here at Immutable, I'm the game director for Gods Unchained, TCG on the blockchain. And come from a gaming background. I've spent about 20 years making massively multiplayer online role-playing games and card games alike off-chain, and have been in the blockchain space for a little over 2 years now.
Yeah, thank you guys for the introduction. So I think we should start by talking about some of the most recent events and what happened in our industry. As we can see, everything NFT and gaming related is booming, which is at least for me it's awesome, because I personally think that online gaming is one of the industries that can benefit a lot from using and integrating blockchain based technologies, but so far we didn't really see it happening, or at least not at scale that it's currently happening. And one of the things that everyone is currently talking about is the Metaverse. So I just want to start off by asking you, what, in your opinion, is the Metaverse? Because it's obviously not as straightforward, like a direct, there's no direct answer to this. Some people think it's something, other people interpret it in a different way. So Sandra, can you give us your thoughts on the matter about what do you think the Metaverse actually is?
Yeah, no, of course. In all honesty, this is one of my favorite topics to discuss, especially the Metaverse. And this is, I think now, not to give Facebook the applause, but because of Facebook's announcement with Meta, everyone has just jumped on that bandwagon. And now it's become very difficult for you to see any discussion happening in the industry without any mention of Metaverse. And just to touch point on what you said, I think you made a very good point, which is the Metaverse essentially means something different for everyone else. How we can bridge that gap and bring it together is really up to each individual and each blockchain as well, on how they are going to market with what they're building and what they're doing. For me, the Metaverse, of course, speaking from my perspective with Zilliqa, it's important to bridge the gap between the physical and digital, and how we move forward with doing that is a world that reflects and represents the reality in which we live in, but obviously it's digital. So, how can we bridge that gap and bring people into the digital world is very important for us. And, tech obviously plays a very big part. Individuals play a big part, avatars, the future of building. I think slowly we'll start to realize that there will be a massive shift into how strategies are being built from traditional businesses and companies. Eventually in the future, they will start focusing as part of their digital strategy on the Metaverse and how NFTs will come into play. So, in short, the Metaverse is extremely exciting, and I wish I could tell you more about what we have up and coming, but I'd prefer if we dealt with that at a later stage.
Yeah, of course. Chris?
Yeah, the Metaverse is kind of fascinating to me in that in many ways, the way I see it happening right now is we have a lot of metaverses evolving. You don't just have one approach. And in some ways, that's what I love about blockchain itself, in that with decentralization, with the way that things are set up, a metaverse doesn't have to be held by one single entity. So like just because Facebook is Meta now, it doesn't mean that Facebook has won the metaverse wars and now everyone will just go there. In some ways, I think Facebook is going with the wrong approach in that for them, Facebook is Meta, Facebook is Metaverse, and what I see evolving in the blockchain space is, in many ways, it's the players and the communities that get to define what the metaverse is. And I don't even know exactly where all of this is going to go, but the nature of the blockchain itself enables that to happen, in that, in a metaverse, some other game in the future can use, my NFTs from Gods Unchained in a completely separate way that, they were never intended for at their creation. And that's fine. And that's kind of actually amazing. And I think the other part of this that is important is it's a hard concept for a lot of people that digital can be real. And I think this is actually something you see with a lot of people going through their introduction to crypto and the blockchain, is that like your wallet is real. Like this is on you. Like if you lose access to it, like I can't fix this. Like this is something that you're responsible for, just as if you had lost a wallet in physical space. And that's something that I think all of us can bring, working on this, is that little bit of reality to something that before was completely ephemeral in like these centralized spaces where there wasn't really anything tangible about it. It's something that, even today you're renting from that centralized source. You don't actually own any of it. And ultimately, I think it's a lot about education because, as Sandra said, everybody thinks of it a little bit differently. And, it's kind of up to all of us to come together to make it this sort of shared reality.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of people don't really realize how much we've already stepped into the metaverse if we define it as this broader digital space. Because if you think about it, like 15 years ago, before Facebook, most of the human interactions happened face to face, right? Not just Facebook, but pretty much every app that allows us to connect digitally. So right now, most of us, even this particular session is being held digitally. Like I'm one part of the world, you're completely elsewhere, and most of it is already being transitioned to a digital medium, so to speak. I personally think that this is all these interactions being transferred digitally are going to comprise the metaverse in a broader, because like if you think about it, like most of the discussions that we see on Twitter, especially amongst people who are not that crypto native, let's say, all of them picture the metaverse as this digital reality, Ready Player One type of thing, where you have your goggles, VR goggles, and you're augmented in a completely different reality. While I personally think that it's going to be something pretty far away from that. And we can already see a lot of games that are starting to pop off, not just because of Facebook, but Axis happened long before Facebook announced their rebranding to Meta, and we can see that the model of play to earn is gaining huge tractions. Talk to me a little bit about non-fungible tokens and where do they stand in this new digital reality that we're talking about, Sandra?
Yeah, so just to touch quickly a little bit on what you said before about the metaverse, you made some very valid points, and I think it's just important from my perspective anyways, is that the metaverse to me is going to be a new layer of engagement. So essentially it's not really going to replace meeting someone face to face, it just adds a new layer to it. So, for example, I could meet you face to face, but then quickly I can say to you, oh, by the way, jump into my world, let me show you my NFT collection in my gallery that I have in the metaverse, for example. So when I speak of the metaverse, to me, it's a new layer of engagement and a new form of connecting with others that, previously you probably couldn't do it. And I think with Corona, what happened is it kind of already shifted us to that mentality where we are separated by screen and we are attached to our technology. So now when we discuss the metaverse in general, it doesn't seem as big of a shock because you're not being like, oh, what do you mean I can't go out, I can't do this? Because for I think 2 years, we were already used to doing that. So yeah, sorry, I just went on a bit of a tangent of there, but to get back to NFTs. So yeah, I mean, look, NFTs play a very important part when it comes to, in general, not only the metaverse, but in general, when you're attaching it to any kind of industry. I think in the future we will stop looking at NFTs and attach them to art. They will become, certificates of authentication. They will become certificates of completion of high school, of getting awards. However we progress forward, an NFT essentially will become a digital asset that is attached to either an experience, a moment, a piece of art, however you want it to be, really. How it fits into gaming, I think previously gamers were already doing what we are now approaching with blockchain and trying to look at it as this Web3. They were already doing it in Web2. The only thing that blockchain has changed is that now it's brought in the fact that ownership is different, trading is different, scarcity is different. So, NFTs in general, they've come in and they've already just speed rocketed what gamers were doing previously, and just, I guess you could say, gave it steroids and put it on the blockchain and said, look, now you have full control of it and you can do whatever you want. So NFTs and the metaverse go hand in hand when we're talking about, gaming in this new world. But essentially gamers were already a part of it in their own kind of, like World of Warcraft or Call of Duty, when you had your own team that you would jump on a game and you would play with. So they already had the mentality of belonging. And now that still happens, except on a blockchain kind of asset attached to it.
Chris, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so I would want to echo too, like before I get into the NFT side, just what that metaverse already is to an extent, in that, as you can tell by the gray in my beard, like I'm getting up there. I'm not as young as I once was. I've got my kids with me, and we moved across the globe from Seattle, Washington to Sydney, and that mattered less to my children than me moving from like Utica, Michigan to Detroit. I was an hour away physically by car from my friends at their age, and it might as well have been an impossible gulf. Like I had the phone that I could call them on, but it was long distance and expensive. Yeah. And my kids are still, playing games and interacting with their friends back in Seattle because they've got Discord, they've got games that they can hop on and play together. And like that sort of metaverse of the world becoming smaller and us still being able to engage is already happening before we get into Web3 and NFTs and decentralization. And I think Sandra's right here in that NFTs just help to accelerate that, and in many ways empower it beyond what people are already doing. The other way I look at this is some famous experiments on paving pathways in university quads, where they just let the students walk, they see where the dirt pathway are and they pave them over. And if you look at gaming, gamers have been paving the pathway for the space that NFTs are filling for a long time. Like it's a black market though. It's like they're selling accounts to other people, illicitly. They have a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of scamming involved, and NFTs I think help bring that into a legitimate space. And when you get beyond some of the scariness of digitally signing and transacting, you get over that. You get the security of like, oh, this is real. This is actually in many ways more safe than some of the transactions I'm taking in Web 2. And it gives you a lot of confidence in where all this is going. And in some ways, in that permanence of, like this NFT is mine and nobody can ever take it away from me unless I choose to interact with them. And that sort of permanence isn't something that I've even experienced in my life. Like you look at music and it's like, I bought things on records and then cassette tapes and then CDs and DVDs, and now it's streaming and Spotify, and that concept of like, even for a digital asset, like maybe in my lifetime, I will finally buy a movie or a song and that NFT will grant me access to it, for the rest of my life, versus like having to rebuy and repurchase in each format, because up until now, in so many cases, it's just renting it.
Yeah, I personally think that NFTs are going to be very, very big, especially when it comes to online gaming, and especially the MMO genre, because we can already see that millions of people are interacting with these games, are playing these games, and they're doing so in a pretty addicting kind of way without getting anything in return. Most of the players, at least, not the professional ones, without getting anything in return apart from the satisfaction from playing the game itself. And I think that integrating blockchain and NFTs, although I have no idea how this will happen, especially on a big scale, which are part of my next questions to you guys. But I think that if this happens and if players are empowered to a degree where they actually have ownership over the things they own in game and they can transact with these things, this will bring a completely new sense. And I'm speaking for experience because, for example, I'm a long-time World of Warcraft player, and I've played a lot of different expansions of the game for the past 15 years. And right now I'm playing the classic version, and I have a character, right? And this character is pretty well developed. But when you think about it, I own absolutely nothing apart from my account, which is subscription based. But what happens in game, I have no control of. Like, yeah, I can get certain items and I can get certain achievements and so far and so forth. I interact with other players, we form a guild, we raid together. But the items that I acquire, they have absolutely no value outside of how they improve my own character. But if they were transferable, or if they were scarce to a certain degree and only a certain amount of number of players had it, then that would mean a completely different thing to me. It also opens the way for a lot of players to actually make a living of this, because why not? We can see that online gaming is a huge and thriving market, and a lot of Chris, I'm sure your kids are, you know, gamers in a certain degree, and you can see that a lot of people are taking this profession path. They're becoming professional players. NFTs and blockchain, in my opinion, can make this a lot easier. But my question is, how do we go there? Like, how do we go from where we are right now to a place where a game is developed and has integrated what technology, and how does this happen? Like, how are my items, which are currently owned by a certain corporation, owned by me? Yeah, Chris, I want to start with you on this one.
Yeah, so this is actually a difficult one to answer because ultimately, like, I don't know, because it's actually a very complex problem. And the source of that for me is partly why when I learned about NFTs, I left mainstream gaming behind, because it had always been a struggle for me. Effectively, what you're talking about in mainstream gaming right now on any sort of free-to-play game, or even pay-to-play game, it's all about trapped value. That's literally the term that we're using in the economy discussions. It's, an account is trapped value. It doesn't matter if we give a 90% discount on this huge package to get them started into the economy and start spending, because that value is trapped, can't move anywhere. And that was some of what I had to untrain myself as I'm looking at an NFT economy, because the value isn't trapped, the value can move. And one of the most basic things is it's almost a retraining of everyone from this concept of, the systems we're creating to trap time, to trap value. And you see this in not necessarily MMOs, but like, Hearthstone, or even my previous game, Magic the Gathering Arena, where, we're letting people take, 20 cards and dust them to transfer them into one other card. And it's like, we're letting them, destroy the things that have been created in the economy to like move them on at this fractional value. And even then, like, we're doing it so harshly when it's trapped. How do you translate that into like they're earning something and it's free to move on, they can sell it. And the thing I love about it is it creates a deeper accountability for the creators of the game, because once you create that thing, like, it's there and it's real. And honestly, if you piss your players off and they leave, they flood the market with those items, it has an impact on the whole economy. Like in the sense of the MMO, a World of Warcraft, the way we do it, I think, is very carefully, because you even saw this with Diablo 3 when it came out, and it had an auction hall. And in many ways, it effectively was a centralized version where people owned their weapons and they could buy them and trade them. But it, in many ways, ruined the game, because progression no longer was necessarily about what you acquired. It was like you're acquiring things to sell them to go buy the thing you actually need. And it didn't feel right. So like there is an extreme where if we open it up too much, where players literally own everything and they can trade everything freely, that it actually can ruin some of the sense of progression and like what you have earned. But there's a lot of space, even in gaming today, where I think like that identification of self, and this is something you see in games like League of Legends and Dota 2, where people aren't purchasing power because once you start purchasing power, you get play to win or pay to win mechanics, and gamers just don't like that. It doesn't feel good.
That's true.
But if some of what we're focusing on first is like you're talking about that character you've built, if it's your armor, it's the combination of things, it's your accomplishments. It's like if your achievements aren't just achievements, but they're plaques like that, like Sandra said, that you can store in your trophy room, and then you can have your friends come over in your version of the metaverse and like talk through like your history, whether it's these moments of like you finally defeating the raid boss that can be shared. Like, I think there's a lot of things that are outside of what players normally consider, acquired gear that NFTs in the metaverse can explore with to grow versus just convert. Happy to hear what Sandra's take is on that.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of left me at a hard point here, Chris. But just touching on to, no, it's all right. Just touching on to this question. It's very interesting because essentially what blockchain does is a game doesn't need to be on the blockchain. And the big part of us discussing why blockchain is important to gaming is the value of ownership. Because true item ownership actually comes through the blockchain, because that's how you can track it. It's transferable. You can sell it. You can even, we've seen many use cases where, players can take their item from one game and use it in another, in another world. They can destroy items they no longer want. And, they can even take the tokens and use them for something else. One thing that I find really interesting as well with blockchain is that if the developer was to do an update and you're not happy with it, you can still choose to play the old version as well. We've seen that happen with, I think it was Loom Network, if I'm not wrong, from memory. So, there are other things that the blockchain adds to what value they bring. But I think the most important is the true item ownership. That for sure is the biggest ticker for me, for people transferring from what they do now to coming onto the blockchain. And the item scarcity that comes with just the fact that you can prove that you own this and it's yours. It doesn't mean that it belongs to this game anymore or to this person. No, you've bought it, it's yours. You grow it, you keep it, you can make revenue from it, liquid markets. You can add so many layers of engagement to whatever it is you own on the blockchain that previously you couldn't do. And, again, I just want to go back to the fact that when I was a kid, right, I used to play Sonic the Hedgehog, and I used to run around and, you jump up and down and you get all these tokens. But I never actually owned any of these tokens. I'd just be running around because, my mom was cooking in the kitchen and she wanted to keep me busy. But now at the blockchain, what we can do is if I'm running around and I'm collecting all these tokens, I can actually be making a living. I could actually be earning some coins, which I can then down the track actually, sell, earn in-game assets from. So it just adds that more layer of accountability to your actions in this world that you're building online. And I do refer to gaming now as its own world, because we're finding out that with the metaverse, essentially, yes, it will become a world for you that you can enter, phase out from reality and just enjoy what's around you. There was this very interesting study that I saw. Actually, it was a documentary about how the Philippines in lockdown, they were turning to P2E to make a living because, the lockdown came, nothing was happening. So what they did was they turned to play to earn games on the blockchain. And people were actually making more revenue from playing these games than they were having their store open. So I hope that answered your question about why blockchain and gaming, but essentially it's opening doors for people to just say, okay, I'm not so much confined to what I purchase from, as a game, FIFA or whatever. I can now enter a world where I can actually make a living, earn money, and interact with others and actually own my assets. They don't belong to someone else where I'm spending in-game money going to their pocket and me getting no revenue from it.
And
so
Sandra,
Chris, I hope I answered that question.
Okay, building on that, Sandra, what do you think the biggest challenge for the industry as it is right now would be to transition to a place where this happens more seamlessly? Because right now, if you try to play most of the play to earn games, it's really not that easy. I mean, there is a steep learning curve even for people who are native to this type of thing,
Yeah.
but especially for someone who's never experienced it before. So like
Yeah.
Chris mentioned it a bit earlier, that education is a very important part of it. What do you think? Which is like, what's the biggest challenge in front of
No, I actually really love this question, and I get really excited every time I'm asked it, because this doesn't only apply to gaming. I think this is an issue that everyone is facing, whether you're a crypto native or not. The barrier to entry to crypto might seem a bit scary to people who aren't crypto natives. I think sometimes we take for granted how easy it is for us in comparison to explaining it to others and trying to onboard them. One thing that we're really doing at Zilliqa and paying a lot of attention, with the projects that we put out and with our ecosystem, is we're paying a lot of attention to how our UX UI is being translated and how that barrier to entry is seamless through integration. So we want you to interact with the blockchain without you actually realizing or noticing that you are doing it. One project that I can reference from the Zilliqa ecosystem that is doing a really good job of that is Blocks, actually. So what Blocks did is they integrated with Minecraft from the Zilliqa ecosystem, and it was the first game to do that through Zilliqa. And essentially what you found is that people were playing this game, but they were also able to tap into the blockchain without them realizing. So through that, the big focus on, of course, like Chris said, is education is a massive part. But to me, education comes without saying. You have to educate on what is a wallet. I think the amount of times I get asked, actually, what is a wallet? Is it a physical wallet? What does that mean? It's education on what the core elements are of blockchain. So, your normal wallets, NFTs, what is an NFT, what is IPFS as well, how to properly secure and take control of your NFTs. So education plays a big part. UX UI plays a very big part as well. So the user-centric focus on what that journey looks like. I think once a lot of blockchains start focusing on that, or layer ones or layer twos, whatever, you will notice that people will start to, without realizing it, start to dabble in the blockchain. And then at some point, I don't know, it'll say to them, wrong key or something. They'll be like, oh no, was I using the blockchain the whole time? So I think that barrier to entry will slowly start to die down once more people focus on the core elements.
Chris?
Yeah, this is a tricky one because I think in gaming in particular, we've lost the narrative thread at the moment. I'm actually seeing a lot of hostility towards NFTs and the blockchain in the gaming space. And some of this comes down to like the biggest challenge that I see we're facing. And I think Sandra's absolutely right. If we're going to get adoption, you have to show, not tell. You almost have to trick people and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was on, it's the blockchain. Like, people don't want to necessarily learn. You need to make it so easy that it just does what they want without them having to really work for it to truly get into the mainstream. But the other side of this is scale and the environmental impact of the blockchain. Bar none, the thing that I get hammered with in the developer space, in the player space, is what people have seen about NFTs and scale is that if we were to convert World of Warcraft with the scale of transactions and item creations they have, like we'd have to consume all of the energy on the entire planet just to run World of Warcraft because things just don't scale. So I don't know if that's necessarily true. And even for us at Immutable with Immutable X, because of like the very nature of L2, we're able to do a lot more transactions for the cost of a single transaction on L1. And that's sort of helping us reach scale. But I do think one of our biggest challenges comes down to like how we're doing that scale. Because right now, like a lot of NFT projects aren't at all about scale. It's about 10,000 of something, it's about hype. And that also turns off a lot of the mainstream gamers because if they look at even the valuation of some of these things, when they're looking at something being worth $22,000 or $300,000 as an NFT, like that doesn't actually help our narrative. Like for gamers, it's like what are you doing to my gaming space? Like this is almost ridiculous. So I think huge proponent of now I need to go investigate the Blocks project, but it's like these elements of like how we get there. We have to get our scale down, and we have to make it frictionless. We have to be have it be something where it's non-custodial wallets, where we basically handhold people through each step of the journey and let them unlock it and make it more complex as they get there. Because right now, they see the complexity, they see some of the issues with scale, and it's not something that they're excited for, which is mind-blowing to me, because in so many ways, like having been a long-term gamer, like everything that this is leading us to is what people have wanted, but we've lost this thread. And I don't know where the negativity from it came around, other than, basically a lot of the traditional like centralized, platforms being threatened by what's happening, because they're going to lose that control they have over everything. Like going from this paradigm where, what I create and rent, it's all just like, it's mine. And if I just decide to turn everything off, you can't do anything about it, to this idea that I created these things for you and now you control it forever. Like that's kind of scary. And I think maybe that's where it's coming from, but we got to get past this if we're really going to go hit the mainstream gamers, because what I'm getting told in a lot of my conversations is like players like, we just don't want it because it's bad and it's not environmentally friendly. And I'm like, whoa, 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 trust me, it's not bad. I'm not, hey, you guys have worked with me. You know who I am. Like, I'm not trying to do this for evil. I'm trying to do this for good, but we've lost that baseline assumption.
I think just quickly, just jump in on what Chris said, that is a conversation that we see happening, very often on how bad is this for the environment and what is the carbon footprint and so on and so forth when it comes to blockchain. And I can talk from a Zilliqa perspective, not because I obviously work and represent Zilliqa, but just on the fact that as a layer one, we do pay a lot of attention to how we are focusing on the scalability, especially when it comes to focusing on being carbon neutral by 2022, forming green alliances to, make sure everything we do is sustainable. But one point that I think we all kind of touched on, but didn't really go into, and that's the gas fees that comes with minting these NFTs for in-game assets and all that. One aspect that we have at Zilliqa that is very important for me to mention is the low gas fees compared to other blockchains that exist, or L1s. Maybe now, I don't reckon we have a competition. I think everyone out there is doing the best that they can. And, I do upload every other blockchain that is doing it. But from our perspective, we do have very low minting fees when it comes to NFTs. And this is why for us, that barrier to entry for people setting up play to earn games or in-game items or NFTs or whatever it is as assets, Zilliqa can be the go-to blockchain for a premier choice, because one, you have low fees. Two, we do pay a lot of attention when it comes to how we are being sustainable in our carbon neutral vision. So it's everyone, I think, thinks that blockchain is horrible and it's out here, ruining the earth, and we're all going to die because of blockchain, but that isn't usually the case. And I think this is where education needs to play a very important part as well. I think sometimes breathing in air can be accumulated to the same amount of minting an NFT at somewhere. So, it's that education part plays a very important role in how can we bring more people who are mainstream into our world. And I say our world again, because we're already infused in it. So we know exactly how it functions. To us, it's not big and scary and horrible to the environment. To us, if anything, we're making it more transparent. We're making it more, decentralized, and we're bringing ownership into it. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly add that part, because I get asked about gas fees so much that I think just hearing the word gas now gives me trauma at some point.
Oh my gosh. During the heart of our last card sale, gas fees were absolutely ridiculous. Like to transfer one card from a player to another player, was at some points, over $120. And, for me, part of it for me has always been like, I want people to be able to get into the space without having to have a huge buy-in into the ecosystem. So like I do weekend rake events where we give out packs of the most recent set, and I'm giving these away for free, but it's not free. And I'm looking at like, oh gosh, we can't actually mint rewards this weekend because it's going to cost me 50 grand to give away these things for free. And again, like much like Sandra, it's like with Immutable X, it's like I can sleep easy now because I can mint the weekend rewards and there aren't any gas fees on it. And it's like, my stress has come down a lot. And some of that is just from the business side, but because even for Gods Unchained, I don't think we're at the scale we need to be for mainstream, but I've got about 10 million NFTs that have been minted for Gods Unchained. That's a lot bigger than 10,000 for a lot of projects, but again, that's nowhere near the scale we would need to be for like a World of Warcraft, because they're minting billions of items, and some of it is keeping sight of that ultimate target is like we need to be able to mint and transact billions of things sustainably. And I don't think we're there quite yet, but I think we're on the path. And I think most people are seeing that that's where we need to go. We just got to keep sight on that if we're going to really make this work for the whole globe.
Yep.
So if we talk a little bit more about that in terms of it being a trend, right? Blockchains moving to a more sustainable model where they're able to scale without causing so much strain on the environment. Compare for me, please, the trends, because most of you, both of you have been here for quite a while, and we can remember the trends from 2017, 2018, 2019, and so far. And I personally, I'm just baffled by how different they are. So like first we have ICOs, then we have IDOs, then we have the DeFi summer, then we have meme coins and whatnot. And like right now, I personally feel like everyone is talking about gaming and like all of the play to earn platforms, apart from the occasional Shiba Inu pump. So how do you guys see the industry shaping up right now and let's say in the next couple of years? Because like we have to consider the fact that there's a lot more going on in crypto right now than compared to like 5 years ago, because 5 years ago it was mostly Bitcoin, but we can now see that Bitcoin is really not the hottest topic that people are interested in. And there's this argument that retail isn't here, but I think they're here. They're just not looking at the things that we are used for them to look at. They're not looking at flagship cryptos. They're not looking at the biggest projects. They're looking at completely different things. So how do you think the industry is shaping up now and in the future? And given that this is probably the last thing that we will have the time to discuss, again, ladies first. So Sandra.
Oh, no worries. I mean, I'm happy to take this question on first. No problem here. So I think if we take a step back and look at how crypto started, initially the vision that everyone had and the thought was that, you invest in crypto and you hold it. You hold it, you wait for it to make your returns or more, it pumps, so on and so forth. And, either you get a Lamborghini or you sold at a lower price, so you cry and then you start again. And, as we progressed and as more, layers join, as more industries open up to blockchain, we're starting to notice, and what we're looking at is changing that narrative from becoming a token holder to a token user. So from now on, you're no longer holding onto your coins, but if anything, you're using them to grow an ecosystem and you're using them to expand and push forward with innovation that is happening. That in itself is a big learning curve, because, if you entered a space and, just quickly referencing Bitcoin, for Bitcoin still now, you wouldn't go and buy a burger with Bitcoin. You wouldn't go and buy, this, whatever with Bitcoin, because in essence, Bitcoin, you hold it and, because of what it brings to the industry and just for it being Bitcoin in itself, you know what I mean? There are other coins who have came out, and for example, Zilliqa and others that I can go in and mentioning. But for us, the vision is to start educating the broader market and people on how can you go from being a holder to a user. And I think as soon as that starts to become implemented on a broader kind of scale, you'll start to notice that the shift in innovation and growth will grow at a speed that we're not used to seeing in traditional kind of markets or industries. I think retail has entered for sure the blockchain. We're starting to see it with big brands doing collaborations with I think it was Dolce & Gabbana, they did it with, or Balenciaga actually, with Fortnite. And then you have I think it was also Gucci, they did a blockchain game. So we're seeing it happen. But when the metaverse comes in full force and can actually provide a new layer of engagement for retail, I think we'll start to notice that they will do that shift largely. So to answer your question, and to be completely honest with you, I kind of forgot what your question was originally. But I think the point I wanted to make is that when we started off, it was, you grab your tokens, you hold on to them, and that's it. You sit down and you wait for, boomings. But now what we want to do is, no, take your coins, invest in projects you like, projects you see innovating, projects that you think are going to bring value to the space, and grow their ecosystem, support people who are actually releasing on the ecosystem, take part in these launches that are happening. And, we should stop looking at crypto and blockchain and the metaverse and NFTs as a new world. That's it. This is our world now. We've entered it. So now it's just a balance act of how do we convert from what we're used to what it should be right now. So, I hope that was a good closing paragraph or, answer from me, but yeah, I did originally forget the question, to be honest. So sorry, George.
That's okay. The question was, where do you see the industry going forward, in a nutshell?
Yeah.
Chris, you take this. I think I've already answered from my perspective.
I tell you what, if I knew exactly where it was going, I would be far more intelligent than I am. I think one of the things I've absolutely loved about being in the blockchain space is it has evolved so rapidly that where we were at 6 months ago is not where we're at today. And one of the great things that I've loved about it is, as I've gotten older, like time dilates, like time just starts moving faster. And the last 2 years of my life being in crypto have been some of the slowest since I was in my 20s, just because there's so much to learn, there's so much innovation, there's so much to sort of riff on. I think where we're going, though, at least in the short term here, is a shifting of the paradigm of like how things grow. Like Sandra was talking about growth. And I do think like where we're entering next is into utility and growth and how that's going to change the paradigm for people entering the space. And one of the ways I look at it is in traditional gaming, from the business side, you're looking at taking about half of your revenue and spending on marketing. And that is constructive in that you're going out, you're acquiring users, you're bringing them into the ecosystem, and ideally you're getting more off of them in revenue than you're spending to acquire them. But effectively, about half of your revenue is leaving your ecosystem forever. It's going to Facebook, it's going to YouTube, it's going to Reddit, whatever like advertising agencies you're using, whatever sort of in some cases for TV, like TV, whatever it is, but it's gone. Like that money has fled your ecosystem. It's been used to try and bring more people in, but that's not how crypto necessarily needs to work, in that, with tokens, like for us with our Gods token, rather than spending the money to acquire people and having it leave, you spend it and you literally give it to the person who's joining the ecosystem. It's like, hey, come join my game. Here is, $20 of my game's token. Let's get you started in the ecosystem. Now you get to go spend that to acquire cards, to go like buy things from other people off the marketplace. And you're starting to see this different paradigm where your growth funds are actually staying within your ecosystem and multiplying rather than sort of evaporating out. And it's something that gets me excited as a game developer, because it always felt harsh to me that so much of what we were doing effectively was like leaving the core ecosystem off into this sort of marketing expanse. I've loved working with my marketing people. Don't take this in any way as I'm against marketing, but it is about growing that ecosystem. And as we get better at empowering people through this and the ecosystem around it too, it isn't just like individual players. It's the fact that like for our game, Gods Unchained, like we've got another marketplace outside of the Immutable marketplace token trove, where they've built up a marketplace for Gods Unchained cards and other NFTs. That didn't and doesn't exist in centralized spaces. Like this ability to build on a platform and add to it, you start getting additional things like people building rental of cards, people building betting systems. Like in the blockchain space, so many other people can participate in and grow that ecosystem that, again, thinking about this differently from like, I'm the centralized person. I will provide everything that my people need. And maybe people will be on Twitch and they'll like grow it to, I'm building a platform on which people are going to add things to the ecosystem that I never could have imagined. And they get to not just participate in that, like with traditional modding, but they can actually earn a living with that. They can, you know, have it be their business. Like this overall shift, just mentality of how these things grow, I think is the next thing that once we learn to capture that, that's again where we have this huge advantage over centralized systems. That's my closing argument.
Well, thank you both very much. I think you were pretty detailed in your closing arguments. I think that pretty much sums it up. It was a very, very nice discussion for me personally, listening both of you talk about what we talked about. And yeah, I would like to end the way we started by saying that in my personal opinion, online gaming is going to, there is a future where online gaming and blockchain go hand in hand. And I think that's where we're headed, because I think that's what players want in the long run, even if they don't realize it right now. It's just a matter of handing it to them, and in a way which is scalable and effective. So, yeah.
Cool. And thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you, Chris.
I learned a lot just listening to you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, likewise. Thank you so much.
And thank you,
Thanks,
George,
everyone.
for all the questions.
Thank you both for your answers and the overall discussion. Yeah.